let's talk about just eggs, because I know that, and linoleic acid, and what a PUFA is. You might have to just define those because we haven't done too many regenerative agriculture podcasts. And I think it's important for people to try and find the egg quality that you've got and also talk about the pricing you've got. But let's set a bit of a frame and some definitions for the listeners.
Yeah, so I think when someone thinks of the word fat, they don't really think much of it except this is a fat source. However, you could really classify a fat source based on the types of fat in it. So if we've got one side of the spectrum, that's going to be things like almonds, nuts, vegetable oils, higher PUFA, so higher polyunsaturated fats. And then if you think of things like dairy fats, dark chocolate, coconut oil, those are exact opposite sides of the spectrum. So let's say you eat 50 grams of fat. The composition can change drastically based on the types of fat that you're consuming. And the reason that that's important is because you are what you eat. And so if you are eating a diet higher in PUFAs, that means that the inside of you is made up more of PUFAs. And there's plenty of literature documenting this, that we have changed the fatty acid composition of humans, and that has extreme metabolic consequences. And no one's talking about this. So there has been a big change in dietary fat sources. So I'm sure people are very familiar. Butter has been swapped for vegetable oil or margarine, right? Heart healthy vegetable oils. So there's been a big change there, but there's also been a really big change in what livestock are eating. And so there's actually some data pointing that in America, the highest source of linoleic acid and omega-6 PUFA is actually chicken, like consumption of chicken, fried chicken, and also just regular chicken, because chickens, when they eat a high PUFA diet, that means that their tissues, just like us, are made up more of PUFA than we then eat those. So there's been a big shift in fatty acid composition. And so when you think of a fat, there's going to be three main types. There's going to be polyunsaturated fats, PUFA, monounsaturated fat, MUFA, and saturated fat. And those are fatty acid molecules, and they differ by number of carbon bonds in their chain. And the reason that that's important is each double bond makes that molecule more susceptible to oxidation. And when a fatty acid oxidizes through enzymatic or non-enzymatic oxidation, I like to call it like a car crash. So there's just a bunch of things that break off from it, byproducts, and those can cause damage, right? So if you think of a car crash, you've got debris that just goes and flies around. And so when these PUFAs and sometimes even MUFAs oxidize, there's bioactive molecules that come off of the oxidation process that then can go increase inflammation and lead to metabolic signaling that can downregulate metabolism and can actually go damage DNA, damage mitochondria structures. So these are very important things to think about. And I don't want people to absolutely fear PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids, but the percentage, I like to talk about it, the ratio, so the ratio of saturated to unsaturated fat in your diet is very important. If we think back to our ancestors, they consumed very low PUFA, even low omega-3. Omega-3 is very much overhyped, but that is still a PUFA. Our ancestors were higher in saturated fat than unsaturated fat. And then fast forward to today, the ratio has completely flipped. We're higher in unsaturated fat to saturated fat. And that leads to different levels of oxidation in the body, different metabolic signaling. Those fatty acid compounds, saturated versus unsaturated, they're broken down differently for energy production. And that has extreme consequences. So, for example, PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids, they interfere with carbohydrate metabolism, whereas saturated fats do not interfere with carbohydrate metabolism. So there's just so many downstream impacts of the composition of the fat choices that we choose to eat every single day.